Hello Internet, and welcome back to Thrums to Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the Abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. Today I'd like to talk about a short clip of Billy Corgan, the vocalist, guitarist, and principal songwriter for the Chicago rock band Smashing Pumpkins. This clip has gone viral. Basically, it's a clip from his own podcast called The Magnificent Others, where he is talking about his view of how rock became less a part of mainstream culture in the late 90s. The clip has had a lot of attention. Some right wing people have latched onto it and been sharing it. A lot of people who are fond of rock music as a genre and who miss its kind of centrality in culture have also seemed to have found some solace or some interest in it. And then other people have been very critical of it. I'd just like to give my own opinion, and I would like to make it clear that I'm speaking as somebody who has been a big fan of the Smashing Pumpkins for a long time. If you're interested in my relationship to them, you can watch my video about seeing them live last year. I'll link it in the description, along with the clip of Billy Corgan that I am talking about. Okay, so what did Billy Corgan say? He said that in the late 90s, there was a concerted effort to reduce the relevance or cultural cachet of rock music. That if you went to MTV at that time, 97, 98, 99, you would see that everything changed. It went from rock music being very central in the culture to then basically pushing it out, being de-emphasized, and all of the emphasis was being placed on rap music and hip hop. He claimed that overnight industry standards changed so that you could suddenly start doing things you couldn't do before, and the example he gives is waving guns around. He says that maybe the CIA might be implicated in this, that some people believe this to be true, but that this is above his pay grade. All he can tell you is that he saw it happen, he was there, and he knows that it happened. And he also says that he views this as a concerted attempt to reduce the cultural impact or the cultural importance of rock stars and to reduce their voice in the culture. Now, a couple of other people have already made some interesting points that I'll quickly summarize. One of them is the music journalist and YouTuber Anthony Fantano, who pointed out that actually at the time Billy Corgan is talking about the late 90s and the early 2000s, rock music was still very central to MTV and to the culture at large. You had Korn, Limp Bizkit. Shortly after that, you had My Chemical Romance. You had all of the pop punk stuff that was going on at the time. Emo was coming up. Green Day were massive in the period after this. The Offspring were huge in exactly the period that he's talking about. But the Billy Corgan's band, the Smashing Pumpkins, were losing their status. The album Adore was not as successful as it probably should have been, in my opinion. And then when they came back with Machina, they were kind of already slightly past their time. Now, Open Mike Eagle points out that actually what was most central in this period of time was neither rap nor rock music, but actually pop music, and that both rap and rock kind of were sort of on the peripheries of this, but the biggest things in culture, if you ignore Eminem, were like the boy bands, Britney Spears, Christina, all of that stuff. Open Mike Eagle also makes the excellent point that the shift from kind of 90s alternative rock to other types of popular music is equivalent to the shift from hair metal and stadium metal in the 80s and early 90s over to the angst rock, grunge, and post grunge of the 90s. So I would like to add 2 points to this. One of them is that Billy Corgan's argument, on the face of it, is absurd because he is arguing, or both implicitly and explicitly, that rock stars had some kind of subversive cultural power, that they were some threat to the status quo, and that they therefore had to be replaced by rap music. And this is ridiculous because there was no real radical political message to most of 90s rock music. There are exceptions like Rage Against the Machine, who were very radical, and you also can say that Kurt Cobain had a lot of very definite political principles. He was very feminist. He was very pro-queer. The same can be said of Ed Vedder, but they weren't like, especially at the time that Corgan is talking about, it's not like rock stars were like leading a groundswell of political revolution. What you had actually a lot was things like Marilyn Manson, who was really kind of just into a very sort of nihilistic, shocking kind of maybe nominally anti-establishment position. But even more absurd is that Billy Corgan himself made it totally apolitical music, and I don't remember him ever making a political statement of any kind in media back in those days. He was more interested in kind of how he felt that his band was kind of not respected by other musicians, and was often involved in a lot of feuds with people he felt, owed him more respect than he received. The music that the Smashing Pumpkins made, I love it a great deal, but it's a lot about individual angst and pain. It's a lot about the pain of his childhood and traumatic upbringing, and it's very kind of romantic. It's not like politically radical in any way, and Corgan himself has always, at least in later years, been staunchly capitalist. So you would think actually that he would celebrate these kind of cultural transitions that take place within a capitalist commodity system. The last thing I'd like to say is something that Open Mike Eagle stopped short of saying, but what Corgan is saying is irresponsible because it is so similar to a lot of very dangerous far-right conspiracy theories. So there are theories that there is an international Jewish conspiracy to like replace Aryan or white people, for example, in Europe through Islamic immigration. This is like a central tenet of contemporary Nazi ideology. And there are equivalent theories that the powers that be, the wizard behind the curtain, as Corgan says, attempt to kind of degrade culture, Western culture, by bringing in like criminal, degenerate elements, which is exactly what Corgan's describing, talking about people toting guns and all of this. And he pedals it back because I don't believe Corgan is far right. I don't believe he is any kind of like fascist or crypto fascist. He pedals it back and says, there was some good music at the time and there were some great artists came in. But the thing is, I think he's around a lot of this kind of nonsense. Like he's been on InfoWars, he likes Alex Jones. I think it's kind of incorporated without him really understanding how dangerous the ideologies that he's kind of like parroting or referring to are. So there are like many reasons to be very wary of the kind of things that he's saying, and it's really a sort of nostalgic attempt to paint the 90s alternative rock culture as like more radical and more important really than it was. I mean, it's hugely important to people like me who structured a lot of our artistic interests around it. And I also credit some bands like Manic Street Preachers, like Rage Against the Machine, with giving me a political perspective when I was young. But I don't believe that like MTV rock music was ever a threat to the establishment. It was always obviously assimilated. So, all right, that's my take on what Corgan was saying. I hope you found this interesting. If you did, come back, watch me another time. I normally talk about books or films that I've seen and sometimes about albums. All right, thanks for listening. Lots of love.